Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for a 60-minute deep dive into marketing for photographers, including marketing news and tips and photography website reviews. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, that's me. How we doing? It's Thursday night, which means it is time for another TogChat. Thank you guys for checking in. Make sure you let me know where you're from. It's always cool to see all the different places that people are tuning in to TogChat from. So guys, tonight is Thursday, which means it's a marketing night. And I've got a website for us to look at. And we're going to go ahead and talk about some utilities. And I'm going to make it a habit on an ongoing basis every Thursday night to share with you guys a couple web utilities. And tonight we're going to talk about things like page speed and mobile friendly, but sometimes it's going to be stuff about social media. Sometimes it'll be some image optimization tools, a little bit of everything. So we're going to kind of build that into the mix. So first of all, it goes without saying, please at some point during the show tonight, make sure if you're not doing it already, follow me on social media. As much as it seems kind of petty to be asking for social media likes and follows and all that kind of stuff, that's the stuff that allows me to get new sponsors to come on board. And they're interested in two things, be completely honest with you. They're interested in how big are the numbers, and they're interested in how much engagement do we have. And that's why I spend a lot of time responding to comments and trying to interact with people and answer people. And it's working. The sponsors are coming on board. So also, if you haven't done it already, right underneath the video, there's that little button. Click subscribe, please. That way you'll get notifications every time I post a new video or do a live show. And of course, thumbs up, always greatly appreciated. That's underneath the video. And then obviously, leave a comment. Let me know what you want to learn about, what you like, what you don't like. Make it constructive, though, okay? All right, so tonight, gang, I have got a website for you that comes to us from the UK. So I'm going to switch over to the site here. I will get rid of my little layer on the top there. There we go. And I'll have Chad put the link in the chat window for you here so that you can go ahead and open this up in a browser if you're sitting on a desktop or even, on a mobile device if you want. And that way you can follow along. You don't have to stare at my ugly mug the whole time, okay? So this website is owned by Daniel Petkov. He is in Cambridge in the UK. And I always ask photographers, as I explain to you every week, 3 simple questions. So for the most part, I want to be able to go through their websites and review the websites really on a first impression basis. I don't spend a lot of time studying the websites before I come on and talk to all of you. Literally, maximum, I'm on these websites for 10 minutes, and that includes websites and social media where it's appropriate. So I don't want to form too many opinions. I don't want to get too deep into the nitty-gritty. I want it to be able to come from a point of, hey, if I'm out searching for a photographer and I stumble on this website, these are the impressions that I'm going to have. So the first question I always ask is, tell me about yourself. I want to know about the photographer that's behind the website. So in this case, Daniel tells me he's been doing photography for about 4 years, and he started to get really involved about 3 years ago, and the goal is to become a full-time shooter. In fact, what he actually did is he took a year and reduced his work hours so that he could get a lot more practice in and really learn photography. So his challenge that he's really struggling with, he considers himself to be a bit of a perfectionist. And so he doubts himself. He's wondering, is he doing good enough and is his work going in the right direction? So we'll try and give him some feedback on that tonight. The second question is, tell me about your website. So unlike most of the websites we've reviewed so far on TogChat, this is a self-built WordPress website. Daniel did it himself. He wanted to have the site work well on both desktop and mobile devices, which it does. And he wanted it to be a little bit different from a lot of the templated websites that he's seeing out there. So he took the time to go ahead and learn WordPress and how to use it, and he built his own WordPress website. So that's what we're going to look at. He did forewarn me. He has a price list on the website, but indeed most of the photographers in his area do. So I'll discuss that when we get to it. He's also curious about whether or not he should be, doing some advertising, things like that. And then the last question is, what do you want me to help you accomplish? That's the last question I asked them. And very simply, he wants my open and honest feedback to help him be able to take the next steps forward. And I think we can definitely do that. Information Academy, how do you donate money? Super simple. So there's a couple things that I should tell you about that real quick. Down in the lower right-hand corner, all the way down in the bottom, there's a $sign down there, okay? If you click on that $sign, that brings up a super chat, and it allows you to donate anywhere from $1 to $500. Certainly, I don't expect anybody to donate $500. But hey, even if you can give $1, every little bit helps. And here's my promise to you. If you make a donation through Super Chat during the show, any question that comes up in a Super Chat, I will answer it. If it's not appropriate for me to stop and answer it right at that moment, you have my word. Before I sign off for the evening, I will answer all Super Chat questions, okay? And as usual, again, I'm not going to bleed people for information. I give a lot of information away freely. I will set aside a few minutes at the end for kind of an open Q&A, depending on how much time we have. So certainly you can, save some questions for then also, okay? All right, so let's dig into Daniel's website here. I want to do the first impression thing. Daniel has kind of taken his name and given it a little bit of a business name to go with it. So we've got the Daniel's Art Photo. I'll be honest, it's in my opinion, Daniel, and this is strictly an opinion because I'm kind of hardcore about this element of web marketing. I'm not a super huge fan of your domain, but it's not a bad domain. I'll admit I'd rather it be DanielPetkov.com or danielpetkov.photo or .photography or even .space, and which, by the way, gosh, I'm glad I just said that because I forgot. Our sponsor again tonight is the folks at .space. So you guys have heard me talking about this pretty much every week now for the last couple of months. .space is quickly becoming synonymous with creatives. Period. So obviously we all know that it's getting harder and harder to find .coms, and even the .photos and .photographies are filling up. So .space is a domain extension that is associated with photographers, graphic designers, illustrators, artists, you name it. So it's a great alternative for you. If you use the link that is in the description below the video, you get a substantial discount on your 1-year registration of a .space domain name, and I'll be giving away 5 more 1-year registrations of .space domain names before the end of the episode tonight. Okay? So Daniel, again, your domain name by no means is it bad. I would love to see you get your real name in there, unless, now here's where I maybe need to be corrected. If you, for business purposes, are not using Petkov, but are using your name as Daniel Art, okay, cool. Then in that case, it completely works and you're good to go, okay? From a design standpoint, this is what they call, for those of you that aren't familiar with this is what they call a mosaic type design. In other words, you can have images of kind of random shapes and sizes and they all kind of fit together. I believe, let's just click on this here. Yes, it is searchable. I will be honest, I'm not a big fan of having that on the home page. The reason I'm not a big fan of having that on a home page, I mean, it looks really cool, when you kind of click and it's like, oh, there's all the portraits, or you click and, oh, there's all the weddings, and then we lost the click once we got the weddings. That's not good. But the reason I'm not a fan of having this on the home page is that it basically bogs your home page down. So if you go back historically in the web, because of course the web's been around for so long, but if you go back about 10 years, the big trend in web design were splash pages. And a splash page was basically like an intro page where you have some kind of big picture, and then it would be like, click here to enter, right? Well, fortunately, that trend didn't hang around too long. The goal now is give people a sampling of everything and as much information as you can right up front. So you could argue, well, that's what Daniel's doing. He is. So in one hand, not bad. The reason I'm objecting to it is because of what it does from the standpoint of page speed and loading. And that's why tonight I'm going to talk to you guys about page speed and also how you can test for mobile use. And when we get to that, I'll come back to it in a little bit and show you the utilities, and I'm going to share with you the links again. The challenge is that this website does not perform well on page speed tests, which means Google penalizes it, and that's the problem here. So as much as I like the mosaics, I would love to see you disable the search feature and just go with a simple mosaic, period. It's going to be a lot quicker. It's going to be a lot more friendly. And also even don't use as many pictures. In other words, slim it down and probably go with about half of what you've got on this front page. Beyond that, aesthetically, it's really very nice. I will admit, I did not know what this little eye was for. I don't think that is the most intuitive icon. However, when you click on it, we get this information down at the bottom, kind of in the footer. We get the phone number, we get the email address. Oh, there is a Facebook link. So let me tell you right now, in case some of you have tried to click on them, Daniel, your social media links do not work. None of these links work. So do we have an actual... No, and neither does that one, Daniel. So none of your social media links work. So got to fix that like really quick. Certainly, and I did a quick Facebook search. I could not find you on Facebook. So if you are not on as a wedding photographer and a portrait photographer, if you're not on Facebook and Pinterest at a minimum, you're really, really hurting yourself. You should be involved with Instagram. Vimeo, which you have a button here for, unless you're producing some high-end movies nobody cares about, you are probably not going to get much traction on Twitter. Blogger's great if you're writing a blog, but if you're going to write a blog, since you're using WordPress, Daniel, do the blog on your domain name. And in fact, this is a little point for all of you that are tuned in and watching. If you're going to blog at any point in time in your career, do not, under any circumstances, build your blog at blogger.com or wordpress.com or any of the free blogging platforms. The simple reason for that is you don't own the platform. So down the road, let's just say for whatever reason, you start to enjoy blogging. You start to find that you can build a whole new business model around blogging, kind of like I do on YouTube by teaching. Well, the problem that you have then is when you want more control and you want to be able to add all kind of advertising and do more advanced programming on your website, those sites like blogger.com, wordpress.com, you're not going to be able to do it. And you also can't take your blog with you. So you would literally have to go back and manually copy every single blog post and manually copy every picture. So you never build a blog at blogger.com or at wordpress.com or any of those. You do it on your own domain name. And if you go with a company that does templated websites, I can't speak for Wix. They probably do it. You all know that I hate Wix with a passion. Their code is junk. Their whole setup is not friendly. But if you go with a company like Squarespace, if you want to be one of the zombies, go with Squarespace. But they offer blogs that you can put on the websites. If you go with the company, and I use format.com, they also have a blogging setup on theirs. It's like super, super simple to use. So whatever you do, just don't do the blogger.com or the wordpress.com thing. But Daniel, you've got to kind of figure out what's up with your social media. If you don't have it, you got to get it. If you do have it, you got to get these links fixed. But in the meantime, the quick fix is get these links off the website until you're ready to get your social media going, okay? One other little thing, and this is a stupid little nitpicky thing, but it's important. This notation down here for the copyright should say 2016 space hyphen space 2017. It is actually the same in most places in Europe as it is here in the United States. People think that the idea is that you're supposed to change that 1 year like every year so that it represents the current year. That is actually the incorrect way to show copyright. The correct way to show copyright is from the first year that the website went live and generated content to the current year. So you're actually showing a range. That's also a way of essentially advertising to anyone who would be potentially looking at any kind of a legal scenario with your website when your website went live. So in other words, the content that you have on there is potentially copyrighted back to that date. And believe me, it makes a difference. It's actually something that I've dealt with regards to my logo and my I Shoot People. I had a photographer come after me a couple of years ago with an attorney because they had taken the time to go ahead and register the service mark for I Shoot People. And unfortunately, the attorney sold this guy a bill of goods, took his money, never did a search, and I never registered, but I've been using it since 2002. So everything that, he had spent money for was a complete waste of time because it was very easy for me to prove that I had been using it since 2002. There is a website that some of you may or may not be aware of. And I'll show it to you before tonight's over as long as we have time. It's called the Internet Wayback Machine. It's actually owned by Amazon. And they literally go out and archive the internet. So if you've had a website for any number of years and you want to take a trip down memory lane, you can go to the Internet Wayback Machine. You can type the URL of your website in, and you can see what your website looked like back, throughout the years based on the snapshots that they've taken of your website. Okay, so back to Daniel's site here. Simple logo, I like. We've talked about the mosaics. I really wish I could read your navigation, Daniel. You need to make it a little bit lighter. So it's simply a matter of changing the color. The font's fine, but let's get it a little bit brighter so that, we can actually see, what's there. So narrator G, technically that stopped being legally required a while back. Not sure exactly what you're referring to. Let me know what you're talking about. So we've got our link for the homepage. We've got the About Me link. So let's start there and see all about Daniel. So obviously the first thing that we see is missing here, which is really, really important, Daniel. It's you. You're not there. There's no picture of you. And honestly, there is what looks a whole lot like a stock photo. So even if this is your photo, you are not advertising yourself for stock photography. So if I'm a betting man, this is an image that came as one of the demo images in the theme when you purchase it. So for those of you that have never used WordPress, frequently when you purchase a theme, in order to be able to kind of get the theme up and running quickly, the companies that sell the themes will package it with a set of stock images so that if you want, you can essentially install the theme with the stock content so that you've basically got a working website right out of the box. And then what you do is you kind of work backwards and you just change the content, but you don't have to do any design work or tweaking that way. You can literally kind of use the site design out of the box, so to speak. So that's kind of what this looks like, and I'd be willing to bet this is totally one of those images that was a demo image that came with the theme. So I would really encourage you to change this. Daniel, it's really, really important, especially for the kind of work you're doing. And even for reading what you've written here, we need to see who you are. Super, super important, okay? So you start out great. You do creative portrait and wedding photography. You serve Cambridge, Cambridgeshire, London, and the east of England. Awesome opening line. The next line, not so much. So first of all, you're already talking to them. Hi, my name's Daniel. This is what I do. And then you say welcome. Leave welcome out. Welcome is circa 1999 internet. So we don't welcome anybody to anything on the web. period. The way you welcome people, literally, it's by making a user-friendly website that is easy to use and easy to understand and easy to navigate. That's what your goal is as far as the idea of welcoming. Okay, so after this welcome, you kind of get just a little wordy for no reason. To be really honest, you talk about, well, you've got the gift of gab, and because you're good at communicating, that makes the experience enjoyable for people. And then you talk about you're going to be their friend, and you're going to make them feel comfortable. I would encourage you, if you are one of the probably 99% of photographers who dread the process of writing an about page, because I find that pretty much every photographer does. I do. I hate it with a passion. Spend a couple of bucks, or in your case, a couple of pounds, okay, and work with a writer. Go to a website like Fiverr.com. It's Fiverr.com. Christopher, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, Christopher. Go to Fiverr.com. Or go to Thumbtack.com. Thumbtack.com, the rates will be a little bit higher, but you will find a lot more people that are in your area. Fiverr.com, you'll find people from all over the world, but literally for probably about 10 or 15 pounds, you would be able to get a writer to help you write this about page to make it a little bit more marketing savvy. Now, that being said, you're still going to have to give them some direction. Okay. Christopher, I do have an opinion for Thumbtack. Actually, Thumbtack's great. I will say that Thumbtack is more expensive. So, Fiverr.com is an India-based website. A large percentage of the providers on Fiverr.com are located in India, the Philippines, Manila, Venezuela, Mexico, so Africa. So these are people that are, and again, this is a large percentage, not all. There are people in the United States, Great Britain, Canada, you name it, Australia. But a large percentage of the folks on Fiverr are people that are coming from, number one, much poorer countries. That's part of why they're willing to work so cheap. And so the challenge that you have there is some of them are amazing, and some of them are really, really good communicators in English. Others, not so much. I will tell you guys, full disclosure, the intro music that I have with the DJ voice, that is from a gentleman that I found on Fiverr.com. Now, full disclosure, this gentleman's in Canada, did a wonderful job. I did not get that for $5. In fact, by the time I was all said and done with it, I spent several $100s to get that intro done, the 3 versions of it, all that stuff. But what I also did is I actually sampled like 4 different providers on Fiverr.com, paid for it, their cheap basic package, just to get a sense of what they do before I settled on the one that I did. Thumbtack, Christopher, you're not going to have as much of that kind of is it going to work out or not type scenario. Thumbtack it has a little bit more of a better process in terms of somebody wanting to go on there and offer their services. So you're going to find that, and Christopher, I just realized as I'm telling you this about finding somebody to write for you on Thumbtack, Christopher, give me another answer back here. Are you asking about using Thumbtack to market your services? So I'm going to put Thumbtack on hold. Christopher, let me know if that's actually what you were asking me, because your question went up right at the point in time where I was talking about finding a writer, and I had just mentioned Thumbtack. But now I'm realizing maybe you're asking me about Thumbtack for finding photography work. So that being said, I'll come back to the question. Let me know which version you're looking for. So Daniel, back to about me, okay? You need to tweak this. You need to, and you've got a lot of really, really good elements in here. You're trying to tell people, look, you're going to have fun with me. You're trying to tell people that I'm really good with your kids. I get what you're trying to do, and you've got the right idea. But trust me, work with a writer, massage this a little bit, And remember, Christopher, your services. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me come back to that in a few minutes, Christopher, and I'll give you some definite input there. So, Daniel, you've got the framework here. Try and get this up to 300 words. I haven't actually done a word count on this one tonight. I think you're probably a couple words short, not much, but a little bit. But nonetheless, you need to get it tied together a little bit more, and you need it to flow a little bit better. So spend a couple dollars, work with a writer. I promise you it will be money well spent, okay? So when we go into next, we have pricing. So here's one of the problems that I have with your theme, Daniel, and that is that when I get to these sub pages, like I've got this big old picture, I got to scroll down to find the pricing. That's never a good plan. If somebody clicks on a link on your website and they think they're going to get pricing, and I have no idea what these sub ones are, but we'll look at them in a second, or we'll try and figure it out. But when they think they're going to get pricing, you need to make sure they're going to get pricing. The problem is I get pieces of 2 pictures. So that's problematic. Now, before somebody types it in here, let me just remind all of you, depending on the browser size that you're using, you will have a slightly different experience than what you're seeing here in the video. I have the browser that is in this video set at 1280 pixels wide. That's 1280 pixels wide by 1024 pixels tall. Those dimensions are the most commonly used browser dimensions on the internet. There are literally almost an infinite number of combinations because people stretch and drag and reshape their browsers all the time to fit their screens or to be able to put other work on the screen. So there's absolutely no way that you can accommodate every single browser variation out there. You just can't. And unless you go with an extremely simple design, there are just going to be some times when it doesn't look right. But 1280 by 1024, your website needs to look right. It's really, really important. So I would encourage you to get rid of this picture up top. Maybe keep the background shot, but you want that pricing to come up very, very, very quickly. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier on, Daniel explained that in his area, people do post their prices. That's great. We've got a no fee for the photo shoot special. That's fine. You're making your money. Beyond that, so you're doing the shoot up to 1 hour, and you're giving them 10 images, high quality prints, 6x4s, or as we say here in the US, 4x6, but that's okay. And then you're going to give them 3 files, for sharing on Facebook. So that's all fine. I mean, I would encourage you to maybe, and be careful, because honestly, what I would rather see you do, if this will work in your area, and so determining will it work means, does every other photographer in your area have a breakdown just like this? Or do some of them say, here's my prices, and my prices start at £100 for a portrait session, or my prices start at £275 for a wedding session. If some of them do that, where they give like a starting price and basically say, hey, contact me for more information, I would really, really encourage you to do that. If all of them have their detailed pricing information, since you are not relying on this for your full income yet, I would encourage you, Daniel, run a test. In the marketing world, they basically call it split testing or A/B testing. We're not going to get into all those fancy terms. I just want you to run a test. And what I would say is, maybe you leave weddings alone for a month. You don't change any of the information in the weddings section. But up here on the portraits, get rid of all these packages and basically say, I have portrait packages beginning at £100, including the shoot, prints, and digital files. Contact me for more information. Done. So you're giving a starting price. You're giving a hint of what the packages include, but not all the details. And see if you get any fewer inquiries during that time. I honestly don't think you will. In fact, I think you might get more inquiries because you've got some nice images to show. So as long as you are indeed going to get your social media game going and get your website out in front of people so that they're seeing it, because right now people aren't seeing your website. That's your challenge. So as long as you're going to get your social media game going and get your site out there where people are going to see it, then, I think that you're going to find you'll have the opportunity to actually converse with more people. And that's the important part. For the same reason that I'm telling you, you've got to get your photo on the About page. You've got to try and make your business as personal as possible, because you're looking at two categories here, portraits and weddings, that are very personal things for people, very personal things. So you need to interact with your client base. You need to, basically build a relationship as soon as possible in this whole process. So I would really love to see you at least just test it and see if it will work out for you. Indeed, if every other photographer has their prices, you got to be careful, hence the test. But I will still, and I know that there are photographers out there. In fact, I heard some podcasts the other day, and really, if it would have been a radio show and a live show, I would have been on the phone calling in, like screaming that the guy was like an idiot. And he was arguing that no, photographers should put the prices on the website because that's what clients want. No, that's what clients think they want. Okay? The customer is never, capital letters, never right. You just have to make them feel that way. Period. If you are putting out quality work, if you are making a quality presentation that is friendly, is engaging, and displays your work professionally, people are not going to have a problem contacting you. Period. They are not going to leave you because you don't have prices there. It's not going to happen. But indeed, you have to be cognizant of the idea that if all of your immediate competition is doing it one way, you don't want to stand out for the wrong reasons. You want to stand out for your photography. So that's where the pressure comes in to keep them, which Daniel mentioned. The other photographers in his area, they have the pricing. But I'd love to see you at least test your way around that and see if you actually really need to do that, okay? So, that's kind of my issue with the pricing thing. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, the way you've got it set up there, that's fine. If that's what your competition is doing, and that's what has to work in your area, okay? So let's see what these other pages are that we've got here. And are these? Emmanuel, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really, really sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. So we get weddings, and now, so actually this is the same information you had on the pricing page, Daniel. So, and now the upside is I got two wedding pictures here, but I kind of have one picture, but then I have a wedding shot. So that's great. In fact, I love the cows. That's awesome. But I would discourage you from having the double page. One, just from the simple maintenance standpoint. If you update one and forget to update the other, then you got a conflict in your pricing and all that stuff. Also, as far as the special offer thing goes, my sincere advice is don't do special offers, don't do discounts. I know I wind up saying this every week, but it's important. Never, ever, ever discount your photography. When you discount your photography, you are revealing to people the true worth of your product, which makes it very, very difficult to get full price ever again. If you find that you need to do something to incentivize people, give them something for free. Giving someone something for free costs you less money than discounting your work. Because discounting your work, you're literally taking money away from what your prices are and what you expect to earn for your services. If you give someone a free 8x10, I'm sure it's no different in the UK, Daniel, than it is here in the US. You should be charging a minimum of £50 for that 8x10. It's going to cost you about £4 to get that 8x10 printed at a high quality lab. So if you want to run an incentive, the incentive should be a giveaway. And what I would encourage you to do with your incentives, if you want to do incentives, don't base it on the weekends or that kind of stuff. Base it on spend this much money, I'll give you this for free. Spend this much money, I'll give you this and this for free. And you're going to wind up spending, 5 pounds and 20 pounds, but you're getting your client to spend 100 or 200 pounds more in the process. That's the way you want to work that. But I really would discourage you from having the multiple pages for prices. I think you're just really going to be looking to confuse people. That's really not going to help you. Okay, so we've got a spot where you pick up your proofs. I got to be honest, I wouldn't use this photo only in the sense that you're a portrait and wedding photographer. So suddenly we have a random photo of a train station. Kind of doesn't really fit with what you're selling. So switch this photo out, make it something that's more appropriate for the kind of work you're doing. Okay. The contact page, kind of same thing. Really nice. Really nice image. Very European, but what it has to do with portraits and weddings, I don't know. Plus, I clicked on a contact link, and now I've got a full frame picture. I still can't contact you. So you're making me kind of jump through hoops to be able to contact you. The simple form is fine. The fact that you've got your phone number there, also good. Where you're located, also all that is fine. Be careful of your grammar and your spelling. That A should not be capitalized. You don't need a hyphen there. So again, this is one of those things. You could go to Fiverr.com. You could spend a couple of bucks, have somebody check your grammar, all that kind of stuff. Believe me, it's worth it. Like when I write articles for magazines and for my blog, I literally have a college student that I pay $10 an hour to come in, and she edits for me, and she goes through and she checks my grammar and make sure that I don't look like I'm completely illiterate. So and I've taught her. We've kind of gone through the learning curve of having a little bit of tug of war. She understands that I don't want her to correct my grammar so much that it doesn't sound like me, but at the same time she corrects it enough that it doesn't make me look like a Neanderthal in the process. Okay, so it's really worth doing that. And the good part is it's not like you're going to be needing to change this page on an ongoing basis. You're going to do it once and then you're done. So it's a one-time expense and it's over. It's finished. Okay. So now that I've gotten back here, I'm also realizing that your portfolio is right out front on the home page. So, that being said, I'm still going to stay by what I recommended before, and that is that I would love to see you create a separate portfolio section. Because I like the way that I'm clicking through to these and I'm seeing all these shots. However, here's the problem. Okay, we shouldn't be seeing so many pictures of the same thing. You need to trim it down a little bit. It would be much, much stronger if you were showing a smaller sampling along the way, okay? And I would also suggest, just based on the 2 galleries that I've just clicked on, Daniel, you don't have your best photographs on your homepage. So you need to be a little bit more aggressive about your editing and how often you edit. Because just in those last 2 galleries I clicked on, I saw some really nice images that are actually a lot better than some of the images on your homepage. So yeah, even in here, you've got some really adorable stuff in here. So honestly, Daniel, I know you put a lot of work into this because you did it yourself, but I would really encourage you to maybe consider a slightly different theme. Go to a carousel or a slider. I know I talk about that a lot, and I know it's kind of one of those things. It's the balance. Well, everybody does carousels and sliders, so how do you stand out that way? Understand, guys, you don't need to stand out for your website design. You simply don't. It's your photography that needs to stand out. It's the way that you are connecting with your clients. That's what needs to stand out. If you look at the evolution of the internet from, the time that we first got the internet, which was 1993, way back in the dark ages, we went through this period where at first the internet was nothing more than white background, black text, blue hyperlinks. And then we introduced pictures in the form of GIFs and then JPEGs. And then people got what was ultimately a really stupid idea. They realized that if they were creative enough, they could use HTML, which is a markup language. They could use it to actually design. And then the internet went crazy, And it became all about design and entertaining and doing stuff that was fun and different. And then Adobe made things a big mess by coming up with this thing called Flash, because Flash allowed us to show videos in web browsers, and it allowed us to create cooler animations and to play sound files and do all kinds of other stuff. Fortunately, the rest of the internet realized Flash is not going to be the perfect way to go, and we started to figure out how else to show videos and play sound using iframes and all kinds of other things, and the evolution continued. But if you look at where the internet's going today, have been kind of the internet to get like Netflix or, to get our TV and that kind of stuff. But the thing is that's not the internet so much in that we're not using it like on a web page type thing. We're watching television that way. So, there's a lot of value to simplifying your design. That was a long way to say that, but that's what I would encourage you to do. And then the big thing, Daniel, is you got to get this social media stuff connected. So let me talk about the two things that I teased before, and then I want to make sure that I answer Christopher's question about Thumbtack here. So one of the things that you should all be aware of, if you are trying to get good Google results, okay? If you've been around for a little while, you've heard me talk numerous times now that it is becoming less and less important to worry about search engine results. 10 years ago, if I would have made a statement like that, I would have pretty much been banned from the internet and teaching and would have been laughed out of it completely. That's not the case anymore. Social media, especially for portrait and wedding photographers, so exactly the kind of stuff that Daniel's doing, social media has become a much more effective and efficient way to market your services. And the fact of the matter is, regardless of whether it's more effective and efficient, for marketing, you always have to look at, where is my clientele? Your clientele is on social media. For brides, they're on Pinterest. Even in the UK, they're on Pinterest. And they're on Facebook. Portraits, Facebook, and Pinterest, and Instagram. So it's becoming less and less and less of an issue to stress over SEO. And that's a great thing for photographers, because the challenge that photographers had, all of our websites are heavy on images, which means bigger file sizes, less text. Google really only pays attention to the text when it comes to indexing. So it was always a nightmare for photographers to get their sites indexed effectively to come up at the top of search results. So for those of you that are still worrying about search results and are still dealing with SEO, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, I'm just saying you don't need to stress about it near as much as you used to. One of the things that is a huge priority for Google these days is a ranking called page speed. And basically it's based on, if I click on the link to visit your page, how fast does the whole thing download? And they run that number twice. They run it once for a desktop, once for a mobile device. It's a ranking out of 100. The higher the ranking, the potentially higher you will show up in the search results. The lower the ranking, the more that Google's algorithm will penalize you, and you will be potentially knocked down in the search results, even if you have great content that meets the search term that somebody's typed in. So, Chad, if you could put the page speed link in, here is the results page that you get when you do the page speed insights. And you could try this on your own websites if you have one, just so you know what you're dealing with. Now, understand, before you go and do your own, let me explain something. If you're using a templated website company like Wix, Squarespace, Format, any of the above, you can look up your information, but out of all this information and all the ways that they tell you you can fix it, there's only one thing that you can control if you're using one of those templated companies, and that's the file sizes. You can knock your file sizes down, but all the other things that they recommend you change, you are not going to be able to change them because these companies won't let you. So understand, this is mostly background information. If you're running a WordPress website, most of the things that are listed here, Daniel would be able to fix because he's running WordPress. Okay. So for the mobile rankings here, he comes in at 46 out of 100. A lot of things that he could fix. And on the desktop, he's at 48 out of 100. Anything below 50 is not particularly good for page speed. Obviously, you get up into the 90s, you're like a rock star. If you can keep it in the 60s, you're doing really, really good because you're in the average at that point, okay? But it's something that is worth at least being aware of. And understand, you guys have heard me talk in previous marketing episodes about JPEG Mini for compressing your images. This is why you would consider a program like JPEG Mini to be able to get your page speed rankings as high as possible, especially when you're with a web host where you don't have a lot of control over all that other technobabble stuff that's listed there, okay? And then the other little kind of website checker that I want to tell you guys about tonight, and Chad will post a link in here for you again, and this is Google's mobile-friendly test. So starting with the beginning of 2017, Google introduced kind of a new rule, and I say rule in the sense that it's not like they take your website off the internet, but they are really, really down ranking aggressively websites that are not built to work in mobile browsers. And that's simply because more and more and more people are using mobile browsers to surf the internet. So the way you check to be sure that your website is mobile friendly is at the link that we just put in the chat window there. And it will come up and it will tell you, yes, your page is friendly, etc. You know, Narratorgy, you're absolutely wrong. Google is not evil here and Google is not wrong. So I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'll gladly have that debate with you, but I won't tolerate anybody trashing Google. And here's why. All right. Google's a big corporate conglomerate and Google can do whatever they want. So if you're one of those people that's just got a thing against big companies, do me a favor, keep it to yourself. Here's the thing with Google. Google's algorithms for search, Google's attitude towards page speed, Google is committed to making the internet easier to use. You go back to the original search engines, Yahoo, Lycos, AltaVista, Excite. Remember those names? Some of you do. In order to search, if you were going to search effectively, the first thing you had to know is that if you were searching Yahoo, Yahoo was never a search engine. Yahoo has never, ever, ever been a search engine. Yahoo is a human directory. All the others used a language called Boolean language. If you didn't understand Boolean language, and that was the idea of putting operators in, pluses, equals, quotes, if you didn't understand how to use the operators, you could not do an effective search. Google came along and said, this is really stupid. People aren't that smart because they're not. So the idea is now when you go to Google, you don't do Boolean searches. In fact, they don't help you at all. When you go to Google, what you do is you type in whatever's coming out of your head. The idea is you're going to type in, how do I find this or whatever? And Google's going to interpret that, and they're going to go from there. Okay, Michael Bradley, actually, that is incorrect. DMOZ, if I'm not mistaken, came from the Netscape side of things. Yahoo was Yahoo in the beginning. It was simply Yahoo. And then there were things that got merged and put together after that. But Yahoo was just Yahoo. So anyway, and actually, Jeffrey, that's a great point. Jeffrey made a comment here that, faster is important in areas, especially where high speed is not always available, rural areas, Africa, things like that. So, I mean, that's very, very true. It's ironic, even here in the United States, because so much of this technology comes from here, you would think that we would have the best internet access in the world. Ironically, we don't. For those of you that are in the United States, you should understand that countries like India, in the major cities, actually have better internet access than we do here in the US. And that's because what happens is the companies here that create this technology, they'll go to third world countries and then they'll install it for free. And then what they do is they fly people from municipalities and large companies from the US over there to see it work in the hopes that they'll buy it. So a lot of these other countries get this technology before we do, even though it was designed here and created here. So, narrator guy, okay, good. You're off the hook for that reply, okay? Glad to know you're a programmer by trade. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, any big company, it sucks that they have the ability to say, we're just going to do this or just not do that. But yeah, I mean, Google's got the right idea, and they're pushing things in the right direction. Plus, I'll be honest with you, as a small business owner / entrepreneur who, since the mid 1990s, has made my living using the internet, I have a mentality that if Google says do it, I simply ask how fast, how big, and for how long. That's it. Done. I don't question it. Some of you that have been around, you may know or be familiar with a program that Google had. It lasted literally for just about a year. It was called Google Helpouts, not Hangouts, which is still around. This was Google Helpouts. I was one of the first 1,000 Google helpers. I was contacted by them, and what it was, their plan was, if somebody typed in a photography question into Google, in the search results, one of the first results that would come up would be, talk to an expert. And you would click, and you would be able to schedule a one-on-one video consultation with an expert. And I was the first photographer that got signed by Google to do that. Google built this whole platform around doing this. And their long-term goal, they wanted to be able to have big companies come in and do their customer service that way. They ran it for about a year. When they rolled it out, they never added it to the search results, which was the original plan. So nobody really knew about it. It got some big press when it first came out, and that was it. And then eventually they just shut it down, and they've taken pieces of the technology and they've used them elsewhere. Okay, because Google can afford to do that. But so anyway, I digress. Let's get back to our topic here. So those are two utilities that you guys should bookmark them. Check your website out from time to time so that you are at least aware that based on the current Google standards, where your website stands. Okay. Crystal, I see your question. I'm going to come back to it in a minute. I want to go back to Christopher's question, especially since Christopher did a super chat. So just a reminder for you guys. Here, let me switch the screen over here. If you have a question that just can't wait and you really want to get an answer tonight, hit that $ button down in the corner and do a super chat. Okay. So Christopher asked if I have opinions about Thumbtack for finding work. Okay. So for those of you that are not familiar with what Thumbtack is, it would be thumbtack.com. Okay. Thumbtack.com is a website where you can go, you can set up a profile. I believe they let you upload some of your images there, but certainly you can link to your own website and you make yourself available for work. There are a lot of companies, especially small businesses, that will go to thumbtack.com because they're trying to save a buck. In other words, they don't have a huge budget. So they're going to go to a company like thumbtack.com and they are going to do a search for a photographer to do portraits of their staff for social media, or for a photographer to come in and shoot their products, etc. Okay? So thumbtack.com, especially here in the US, is becoming very, very, very popular in terms of small to medium-sized businesses outsourcing work. Okay? You can go to Thumbtack, you can find graphic designers, you can find writers, you name it. And so I would say to you, Christopher, that it is a good place for you to test the waters. That's the short version of the opinion. Understand that a lot, and I'm sure you've probably already found this if you've looked at some of the competition in your area on thumbtack.com. Part of the challenge that you have is that a lot of the folks that are going to go on there are not running smart business, meaning they're working way too cheap. So they're kind of undercutting the next guy just to try and make a buck. And that makes it tough. So, I would say to you that if you're going to do Thumbtack, go easy with it. Don't build your entire business model around it so that you don't feel the pressure to be the cheapest guy on Thumbtack. Make sure that you are posting really, really high quality work. Make sure that you're actually putting effort into your write-ups. And just like we've been talking about, work with a writer if you have to, etc. But make sure that your write-ups are well written, good grammar, all that kind of stuff. Remember, when you're writing this stuff for those kind of websites, for your own website, you are looking to convince people that you are a great person to work with. Your photography's got to convince them, hey, he's a great photographer. So don't be telling people how good a photographer you are. Don't tell people how many years of experience you have unless it's a big number. If it's a big number, then it's impressive. You know, when you get to the point where you're like me and it's like, yeah, I've been shooting for 40 years. That makes me old. Okay, then talk about the number. But you know, you've been shooting for 6 years. There's nothing impressive about that. You've been shooting for 15 years. That's still not that impressive. Leave that out. Okay? Show your work. Your work is what's ultimately got to sell people, period. So, you know, I would say test Thumbtack. Don't build your business around Thumbtack. I think that you will be very disappointed if you try that. That would be my advice with that. Okay? Troy Hall, is the indexing true for all imagery now or just JavaScript layouts? No, I mean, imagery in general, Google looks at alt tags. Hang on a second, Troy. Sorry. Christopher, spent about $200 on Thumbtack and generated about $500 in sales over 3 to 4 months. So it's not a great profit margin. All right. So you know what, Christopher? You're actually having better results than a lot of people that I've talked to with Thumbtack. But here's the thing. And I think my response to you is going to be the same to these other people. Because you guys all know that well, maybe you don't all know, so I should tell you. I offer, which you can find the information on my website. So actually, let me bring up my website and I'll show you where it's at here. I do offer, if you go to my website and you click on the Learn from Joe link, I offer one-on-one consultations that you do via Skype or FaceTime or Hangout, etc. So frequently I will have people that will schedule these consultations with me for the purpose of reviewing marketing stuff. So I've talked with a bunch of people that have done Thumbtack and pretty much failed miserably. And of course they were bad-mouthing it. They said, oh, it sucks. It's this, it's that. And then when I looked at what they had presented, you know, I was able to kind of point out to them, it's like, well, no, Thumbtack doesn't suck. You suck. And in the sense that they had really kind of put up a half-assed presentation. Not necessarily the best work, but more often than not, really not the best information. So the fact that you're at least in the plus column here, Christopher. Now, granted, you know, that plus column means that you grossed $300, or not grossed, sorry, netted $300 when we take Thumbtack out, which means that you probably didn't make a lot of money on those gigs. But that being said, here's what you've got going. You've got a record on Thumbtack that you've done these jobs. You've probably gotten some reviews. I hope for your sake they are good. What I would encourage you to do is take a good look, a really good look at Thumbtack, and you've got to ask yourself the right questions now. Are you presenting the right images? So the first part of the way you're going to determine if you're presenting the right images, what kinds of jobs were you hired to do? If you were hired to do portraits for LinkedIn and you're showing bridal pictures, well, then you've got the wrong stuff. So make sure that indeed your images reflect what you're getting hired for. That's the first thing. And then take a really good look at what you are saying to people and what you're offering and how you're presenting it. And then from there, I would give it, one other thing. Also look at your actual rates. Are your rates too low? Because believe it or not, there is such a thing as pricing yourself too low to the point where people won't hire you. That's a thing, gang. Okay. So, those are the things you got to kind of evaluate. And then I would encourage you to change things up a little bit. Experiment. That's how you do marketing. You never just do. The days of catalogs and brochures are over. With catalogs and brochures, you printed it and it was done. There it is. You got to live with it. You're stuck. So one of the great things about the internet is all marketing is virtual. You can change it on a dime that fast. So you should test some different things. And then by all means, if you're not able to actually build up a profit, then I would encourage you to, move on and you chalk it up to experience. All the while you're doing this, Christopher, make sure you're really pushing the heck out of your social media. In fact, for those of you, just as a reminder, because I realized the other day that, some of you maybe have not been following these all along. There are a couple videos on my YouTube channel, which you really, really should check out. One, Social Media for Photographers, Part 1. Full disclosure, so this is what I'm going to say now, and half of you won't watch it, when ironically this is the most important video. This video is not going to teach you how to use Facebook. This video is not going to teach you how to use Pinterest. It's not going to tell you anything about image sizes or anything like that. This video is going to talk to you about the psychology behind social media and how you make it work for you. So just because I said psychology, don't be the idiot that says, and leave that alone. Because the fact of the matter is, I could go on Facebook right now and start searching for photographers, and I guarantee you 80% of the photographers that would come up in the search results suck at social media. And yet they all think they're social media rock stars. Watch this video to get a comprehensive understanding of how social media will work for you. Then, after that, you can go to part 2. This one gets into the nitty-gritty. It talks to you about how to use each of the different platforms, which ones you should use, why, etc. And then for those of you that haven't built your websites yet, there is another marketing video on my YouTube channel, domain names and website hosting. Check that out. And then the last one is websites for photographers, where you'll get a lot of detail about the kinds of stuff that we've been talking about here on TogChat. So, and so Dennis, looks like Dennis has done pretty well. So put in less than 50 and made 1,400 so far. So, it's definitely going to be, area will have some impact, Dennis, but a big part of it is going to be really the actual material you're putting up there and the way you're presenting it. Whoops, I guess I need to turn that off, don't I? There we go. That's definitely a key element to the whole thing. So, but congratulations if it's working that well for you. Seriously, it is definitely a platform and a concept that has promise. Regardless, and Dennis, this applies for you too, as well as Christopher. Just make sure you're not selling yourselves short because of the competitive nature of Thumbtack, because basically it allows people to essentially, put out bids and see how cheap they can get stuff. So don't let yourself fall into that trap. Okay. Crystal Allen, I told you I'd come back to your question. Thank you for your patience. So Crystal asked, which blogging websites should one use if they want to leave room to grow? Your own. I mentioned this earlier on in the show, so maybe you weren't here in the very beginning. Don't use blogger.com. Don't use wordpress.com. Don't use Tumblr. Put the blog on your own website. That way you own the content and the material. Anytime that you can do that, it's better. So, as an example, believe me, if there was a way to do YouTube without doing YouTube, there would be a lot fewer YouTubers. There'd be a lot fewer photographers on YouTube. We'd be hosting it ourselves. So obviously, all this material that I put up on YouTube, the fact that I make a major portion of my income as a result of YouTube. If YouTube goes away tomorrow, I'm screwed, right? It's not the ideal business scenario. Now, obviously, I'm betting on the fact that Google and YouTube are not going anywhere anytime soon, but it could happen. I don't own it. If YouTube turns around tomorrow and says, hey, we're not going to show videos by people named Joe, I'm screwed. And what am I going to do about it? I can't do a damn thing about it. I have no control. So, I realize I'm contradicting myself when I'm saying, no, don't use Blogger, don't use WordPress. But the fact of the matter is it's easy to build your own blog. It's really easy to build your own blog. Even if you're doing the Squarespace or the format type thing, you can have a blog on them. If you're building a WordPress site, basically WordPress started as a blog. And so every WordPress, it's got a blogging feature in it. It's there. So you definitely want to do your own. Okay. So Mitch McCoy, how many days a week do you have a shoot? How do you have time to do all these chats, videos? And by the way, your knowledge base is exceptional. Well, first of all, thank you for the last piece. Thirdly, right now, Mitch, I average maybe 1 day a week of shooting. My tax return, it's going to the IRS, says for occupation, not photographer this year, YouTuber. That's my occupation. For those of you, and maybe you haven't been around long enough, Mitch, to hear the whole story. May of last year, 2016, I made a decision, which some people think is the most insanely crazy decision ever. But as I routinely explain to people, I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I decided with the support of my amazing wife that I was going to give myself 12 months, 1 year, to build my YouTube channel to a subscriber base with the goal being 100,000 subscribers in 1 year. So I've got until June 1st. I'm not going to make it, but I'm going to be damn close. So don't worry, I'm not giving up. But there's also a whole business model built around it. Ultimately, and I don't mind sharing because this is actually a pretty standard thing. Anybody that's doing this on a full-time basis is running a similar plan. Ultimately, YouTube will make up just less than 20% of my annual income in terms of like advertising and that kind of stuff. Some photographers do it by selling a lot of stuff, like, Tony and Chelsea, they have all their books, all that stuff. I'm going to be doing some of that down the road, but that's going to be considerably later this year. Actually, where I make my money is teaching. I do a lot of traveling, lecturing, workshops, teaching, and that's the stuff I like doing. I have fun with that. That's what I want to do. Writing books and just selling crap. I don't want to sell crap. Money for me is a necessary evil in life, period. So I've always been that way. It's just how I am. Believe me, there's plenty of times I've regretted that and wished that I was a greedy bastard and had lots of money. But money is the necessary evil for me. So as long as I can pay my bills, people said before, how do you know when you're successful? For me, the definition of successful is being able to do what I love and pay my bills. That's it. If I can do that, cool, I'm good to go. And, don't break any laws in the process, that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's right now, I probably shoot maybe one day a week. Now, as I've said many, many times, I take pictures every day. Like, that's not an exaggeration. I have a camera in my hand every single day. I take pictures every day. Super, super important to me. I would not have it any other way. But I had reached a point doing the modeling portfolio stuff where it was getting a little old, number one, because the challenge is a good modeling portfolio should actually be pretty boring. That's the challenge, okay? Plus, when I do consultations with models now, I advise them not to hire a photographer. I advise them to get it done on a trade. Because if we're being sincere to the models, it's pretty stupid for them to pay a photographer at this point. Okay. So, yeah, that's kind of how it came about. But basically about one day a week. Like yesterday, and it's basically when I'm shooting for my tutorials that I'm doing. Every so often, I will still do some client work. I kept a couple of my clients. Like next Wednesday, I'm shooting a catalog project only for about 6 hours. I think it's about 17 outfits, 2 models, real simple commercial type catalog stuff. That's it. So that'll be a paid client deal. There will be no YouTube video from it, none of that stuff. But yeah, pretty much what I'm doing is YouTube. That's it. Okay. So what do we got here? Let's see. Dennis, Narrator G. Joe, how should someone know where to start when pricing their services? I'm afraid that the first price I use will trap me in that price range forever, regardless of eventually growing in skill. Well, so that unfortunately is like it's like a 2-hour video on its own. Here's what I would actually encourage you to do. And Narrator G, I don't know where you're from. If you're from the U.S., and even if you're not from the U.S., you can use their guidelines. I would encourage you to start with ASMP. It's the American Society of Media Photographers. So if you do a search for ASMP, go to their website. They have some really, really good pricing guidelines. Also, if you're a portrait and wedding photographer, you really need to look at joining PPA. That's Professional Photographers of America. PPA has some excellent pricing guidelines that they offer. The problem of it is when people tell you, here's the one-size-fits-all pricing method, even if they're giving you good information, they're giving it to you strictly from a business kind of school mentality, which doesn't make it bad, let me be clear, but it also doesn't make it the best option. So these two organizations, PPA is really focused on the portrait and wedding side of photography. ASMP is focused more on the commercial side of photography. Their pricing guides are excellent. And essentially they're, a series of equations, worksheets to help you really structure it to make sure that you are not overlooking things and really kind of cutting your profits down by not factoring in all the elements that you're going to be doing. So instead of me giving you an equation, which I hate doing and avoid doing, you need to go check out those two organizations depending on what type of photography you do. And like PPA is an example. Gosh, I don't remember, and I should know because I'm a member. It's somewhere between $200 and $300 a year, which sounds like a lot of money. But with PPA, you get $15,000 worth of equipment insurance annually at no cost, zero, as part of your membership. So the equipment insurance alone pays for the membership to PPA, not to mention all their learning stuff they have and everything. So, a lot of really, really good opportunity there. But that's where I would tell you to start. You'll find tons of articles online. The problem with that is, 50% of them are just a bunch of stupid hot air. The other 50%, probably only about 45% of that is good stuff. And then there's that 5% that's like kind of on the money. PPA, ASMP. So good. I mean, we've got, more people here using Thumbtacks. So you see, guys, there's opportunity with Thumbtack. It's just like anything else. It's making sure that you're being smart about your business and how you're pricing yourself, etc. Okay. All right, gang. So listen, just one last quick reminder here before I sign off for the night and say goodbye. I really appreciate you guys sticking out with me tonight. Please follow on social media. Don't forget, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Please hit that like button. If you haven't done already, please just click that like button right underneath the video. And then most importantly, go ahead and comment. So I will be back here on Monday with another photo review night. Wednesday, which Wednesday seems to be turning out to be the really popular one. Wednesday's the Q&A night, and it is just like rapid fire Q&A, but we get some really, really great stuff going on. So make sure you're here on Wednesday, and then I'll be back next Thursday with another website review and some more utilities that you guys can use to monitor and improve your web marketing. So the weekend is coming, gang, and that means you guys need to get out and you need to take some pictures. So please remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.